Hello everyone, we are Group 1. The theme of our pitch is how misinformation fuels AIDS, stigma, and the role of science communication in reducing prejudice. Now we will introduce the content about the topic, and I will introduce the first 2 points of the problem statement. AIDS stigma is a complex and long-standing global social issue. Its roots lie in the widespread dissemination of misinformation, including misconceptions about models of transmission, the moral judgment of individuals living with HIV, and the sensationalized portrayal of the disease and those affected by it in the media. This misinformation is not merely a result of ignorance, but is often reinforced by cultural norms, religious beliefs, and societal values, further entrench negative stereotypes about people living with AIDS. In the digital age, misinformation spreads rapidly through social media platforms, where emotionalized and algorithm-driven content amplifies its reach, making it more likely to be accepted and shared. This phenomenon has resulted in widespread fear, exclusive, and discrimination against people living with AIDS. It has also deterred individuals from seeking testing and treatment, exacerbating and spread of this disease, and worsening health outcomes. Despite efforts by scientists and public health organizations to promote accurate knowledge about AIDS, there remains a significant gap between the dissemination of correct information and its public acceptance. Okay, now we can turn our attention to issue and gap. Although previous research has identified misinformation as a key driver of AIDS stigma, there is still a lack of comprehensive studies on how science communication can effectively combat this issue. Current intervention strategies largely rely on traditional education models, such as public service, announcements, lectures, and information brochures. While these approaches are beneficial, they often have limited reach and struggle to capture public attention in today's information-overloaded society. Moreover, the rapid and complex nature of digital media and communication makes it increasingly challenging to identify and correct misinformation. Another critical gap lies in the insufficient focus on the role of informational factors in science communication. Rational information alone is often inadequate in changing public attitudes toward AIDS. Understanding how narrative storytelling, emotional appeals, and impact building can reduce stigma remains an underexplored area of research.
Today, I will focus on 2 key points. 1. Why addressing AIDS stigma is critical issues. 2. The main objectives of our study and what we aim to achieve. Part 1. Relevance. Addressing this issue has profound practical and theoretical implications of a particular perspective. Reducing AIDS stigma can improve the quality of life, mental health, and the social inclusion of people living with HIV, AIDS. For a public health standpoint, taking stigma can encourage more individuals to undergo tests and adhere to treatment, ultimately curbing its spread of HIV and advancing global health goals. For the theoretical perspective, studying the effectiveness of science communication in the context can provide valuable insight of addressing misinformation and stigma associated with other diseases, e.g. COVID-19, mental health condition, and social issues. Furthermore, reducing AIDS stigma contributes to foster a more inclusive cultural environment, where divided groups are better understood and kept promote social harmony and trust among the community members. Part 2 aims. Aims 1. Understanding the role of misinformation. Investigate how misinformation spread its types and its impact on public attitudes and behaviors. Aim 2. Evaluating the power of science communication. Explore of targeted and evidence-based science communication can control misinformation and shift public perception. 3. Adapting to the digital landscape. Development strength to captivate the speed and emotional appeal of misinformation on the digital and the social media platform. Evaluate tools such as interactive content, short video, and real-time corrections to enhance the visibility and engagement of accurate information. And 4. Role of emotional communication. Study how empathy-driven narrative and personal story can foster understanding and reduce prejudice. Test the effectiveness of storytelling techniques in building emotional connection and breaking down stereotypes. Addressing AIDS stigma is not just a matter of public health, it's a step towards creating a more inclusive, equitable, and compassionate world. Through innovative science communication, we can transform stigma into support, bridge knowledge gaps, and inspire informed actions.
In this research, we have three research questions and three objectives. The first question will be, how does misinformation contribute to the stigmatization of HIV in public perception? The corresponding research objectives is to analyze the impact of misinformation on social attitude and behaviors towards HIV. The second question will be, what are the mechanisms through which science communication can reduce misinformation and associated stigma around HIV? The corresponding research objectives is to evaluate the role and effectiveness of science communication strategies in countering HIV-related misinformation and reducing stigma. And the last question will be, what are the barriers and challenges faced by science communication in effectively addressing HIV-related misinformation? The corresponding research objectives is to identify key challenges and propose solutions for improving the reach and efficacy of science communication in combating HIV stigma.
This section presents the impact of HIV is stigma and misinformation on discrimination and public understanding, and presents research on media, cultural influence, and misinformation with a focus on how science communication can be used to address these challenges. This section presents the impact of HIV is stigma and misinformation on discrimination and public understanding, and presents research on media, cultural influence, and misinformation with a focus on how science communication can be used to address these challenges. This section presents the impact of HIV is stigma and misinformation on discrimination and public understanding, and presents research on media, cultural influence, and misinformation with a focus on how science communication can be used to address these challenges. This section presents the impact of HIV is stigma and misinformation on discrimination and public understanding, and presents research on media, cultural influence, and misinformation with a focus on how science communication can be used to address these challenges. This section presents the impact of about the subject. HIV is stigma and misinformation, media interpersonal communication, and religious attitude. ORG ATL 2020 found that media exposure enhances HIV knowledge and reduces stigma, but limited media coverage makes interpersonal communication more influential. Religious attitudes also impact stigma, whereas Islamic teachings promote HIV knowledge. They may reinforce conservative views that stigmatize behaviors linked to transmission. Improving media representation and utilizing interpersonal channels are key to reducing stigma. Cultural and contextual influences. Greenwood ATL 2022 highlighted the role of cultural norms and societal contexts in shaping stigma, noting that marginalized groups like racial minorities, LGBTQ individuals, and sexy workers face compounded discrimination. Cultural factors influence how stigma is internalized and expressed, affecting play HIV's access to care and social inclusion. The study emphasized tailoring stigma reduction strategies to the cultural and social context of different communities for greater inclusivity and effectiveness. Mechanisms of information dissemination, dynamics of false news propagation. Vosa ATL 2018 found that false news spreads faster, deeper, and more widely than true news on platforms like Twitter, including in health information, falsehoods often evoke emotions like fear and surprise, driving their sharing and perpetuating myths like HIV transmission through casual contact, which reinforce stigma. The study highlights the need for targeted interventions and combat misinformation in digital spaces, rural areas, and processed myths. Smallwood and Parks 2024 found that limited access to accurate information in rural U.S. communities worsens HIV-related related myths such as transmission through mosquito bites or public toilets. These misconceptions stem from homophobia, poor international resources, and cultural stigmas. Discovering open HIV discussions, the study at workers for certain education and science communication to dispel myths and reduce stigma in underserved areas.
Then I will introduce two other key research areas in the AIDS literature: the consequences of misinformation and stigma, and the critical role of science communication. The literature points to the profound health risks of HIV-related misinformation and stigma. For example, the Curious study found that despite Rohingya refugee women's participation in health education, two-thirds still have misconceptions about HIV transmission, such as believing that mosquitoes can transmit the virus. Low levels of education and inadequate medical resources add to their health challenges. At the same time, Grant and Young reveal that social media and unverified websites spread misleading information, such as questioning the safety of PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, which undermines public trust in testing and treatment, and impedes the implementation of preventive measures. To this end, the study suggests a combination of face-to-face communication and digital media strategies to improve health literacy and reduce stigma. In science communication, Abiyagu emphasizes the importance of community education to reduce misconceptions and fears through information dissemination and advocacy. CHENHUI used MOOCs to demonstrate how technology platforms can raise public awareness of HIV stigma. These two studies, from the perspective of community education and the technology platform respectively, demonstrate that science communication is a key tool in combating HIV stigma. In general, science communication through multi-layered strategies not only spreads knowledge but also changes attitudes and reduces stigma at the institutional and individual levels. Based on the above literatures, we can find the following conclusions. Firstly, existing research reveals the impact of stigma and misinformation, but methodological and the theoretical gaps remain, and they lack concrete measures to accommodate multicultural contexts. Secondly, researchers reveal that the proliferation of information in the digital age has exacerbated the spread of HIV misperceptions, but lack research on the long-term psychological effects. Thirdly, science communication has great potential to reduce stigma and correct misinformation, but their adaptability and long-term effects need to be further verified. In conclusion, further research should explore cross-cultural communication strategies, combine technology with traditional education, and focus on dynamic changes at the individual and group levels to achieve more comprehensive destigmatization goals.
For the methodology section, at first we wanted to adopt a quantitative research directly, but we also considered that the study might require a richer and more descriptive set of data that would take into account participants' psychology, emotions, and so on. So this study utilized a mixed method research design, combining quantitative and qualitative approaches to explore how misinformation fuel AIDS stigma and how science communication can mitigate it. The quantitative research involves surveys to assess the prevalence and impact of misinformation and stigma in KL, while the qualitative components employs in-depth interview to understand personal experience and perception regarding AIDS, stigma, and misinformation. So this design enabled triangulation of findings, ensuring a comprehensive understanding of the research objectives. For its target population, this study focuses on individuals from diverse demographic groups, including the people living with HIV and also the marginalized groups often targeted by stigma, like LGBTQ, sex workers, and also have healthcare professionals involved in HIV care and advocacy. And last one will be the general public who exposed to misinformation on social media. For the sampling technique, we decided to use purposive sampling for qualitative interviews, especially for key stakeholders such as healthcare professionals, and marginalized groups will be intentionally selected to ensure diverse and relevant insights. And also, we use the stratified random sampling for quantitative service. Participants will be divided into strata based on age, gender, and occupation to ensure the sample reflect on KL's demographic diversity. And for the sample size, we decide to use 15 to 20 in-depth interview will be conducted until data saturation is reached. That is for qualitative research. And for the quantitative components, a sample of approximately 300 respondents will be surveyed to achieve statistically significant result for a population of KL. Next will be the instrument. For the qualitative components, we have the semi-structured interview that will include open-ended question on four direction. The first one will be the personal experience with HIV stigma, and second one will be the perception of misinformation about HIV and its impact. And third one will be opinions on the effectiveness of science communication strategies. And for the quantitative components, we have the survey questionnaires, and we also have the four direction. The first one will be demographic, and the second one will be the stigma measurement. Atoms adapt from the HIV stigma scale to assess prejudice, discrimination, and attitude. And the third one will be misinformation exposure, especially for question on the frequency of encountering HIV-related misinformation and trust in media sources. And last one will be the science communication effectiveness, especially for atoms evaluating clarity, accessibility, and perceived reliability of HIV-related science communication campaigns.
I'll go out our mixed measures approach to evaluate HIV stigma, misinformation, and the effectiveness of science communication. Quantitative measures will include using a 5-point Likert scales to assess stigma, tracking the frequencies and perceived inflow of misinformation exposures, and measuring trust, clarities, and accessibilities in communication materials. Qualitative measures will comprise semi-structured interviews, focus groups, and field observation to delve into personal experience, community dynamics, and the real-world interactions. We will also conduct a narrative analysis of the personal stories to uncover deeper emotional and cultural insights. This comprehensive approach is designed to capture both statistical trends and news perspectives, providing a solid foundations for guiding effective interventions. Our data collection also will be divided into quantitative and qualitative components. For quantitative services, we will distribute questionnaires through online platforms like Google Forms or something. Participants will be re-recruited through the social media advertisement, healthcare facilities, and partnerships with local NGOs involving HIV awareness. For qualitative data, we will conduct interviews either face-to-face or through virtual platforms like Zoom, Google Meet or something, depending on the participants' preference. Each interview will last 45 to 60 minutes and will be audio recorded with consent. To ensure privacy, in-person interviews will be held in a safe and natural locations such as NGOs' offices. And we also noted that ethical integrators will be a crucial part of our research. Participants will receive detailed information about their study and provide informed concepts. Anonymities will be also important and also will be maintained. For quantitative data, we will use SPSS to conduct a comprehensive analysis. Descriptive statistics will be employed to summarize demography characteristics and stigma-related information, while inferential statistics will be used to examine the relationships between misinformation exposures, stigma, and overall effectiveness of science communication effects. For qualitative data, NVivo software will be used for thematic coding, allowing for detailed exploration of participants' responses. Our aim or ambition is to identify the key themes, including personal experience with stigma, source of misinformation, and the public perceptions of science communications Cambridge in Kuala Lumpur. And as you can see, these are our references. And that's all for us. Thank you for watching.